Hello friends, Eli here from Mystic Circuits. Today we have another 0HP build video. This one is for the Vactrol Low Pass Gate and VCA. It's an updated video because I've changed a couple things about the kit. First of all, it's the same kit now. There isn't any difference between the two. There's just a point in the process where you're going to decide whether you want a VCA or a low pass gate, and you'll put a different part in a specific footprint in order to do that. And before, I used to have it so that the VCA came with a little trim pot because the variation in the Vactrols was so big that it helped to have a pot in order to get it into the right range. And I've updated the Vactrols that I use. I make them myself now, and they're all more or less in the same range, so that should no longer be an issue. Let's get started, shall we? So first, we'll go ahead and dump all of our stuff out. Just put it right back there on the table, right there. And what we're going to do is put the bag to the side. We've got this silver bag right here. Throw that to the side. Take the jacks, put that to the side. I'm going to put these little plastic nubs to the side, and we're going to get started with, put the plate to the side too. We're going to get started with the circuit board. So now you should have 3 little groups of resistors and a capacitor. Right there. Right there. That's where the thing goes. You see, this is the circuit board, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to take the resistor labeled 10K, and we're going to start out with that one. So 10K, take off the paper. We're going to the thumbs up. Good job everybody for getting this far. You've done a great job. So you'll notice that nothing is labeled on this circuit board. Sorry about that. There was a printing error with the circuit boards, but it's not a big deal. All you got to know is that this 10K resistor goes next to the jack labeled mix in. There's this resistor right here. That's where the 10K goes. Now we're going to put the resistor over there. Oh, first of all, I just kind of did it automatically because I was being mysteriously distracted by somebody off screen. But basically you have your resistor and you double it over like that so that both of the legs are facing in the same direction. If I try and... yeah, my camera's not going to focus on that. Come on, camera, I believe in you. Alright, let's try this. Well, hopefully you can see at this point the resistor is doubled over into a little U shape where this leg, the body of the resistor is on one side. And then we're going to take that, put the mix in into that excuse me. We're going to put the 10K into the resistor next to the mix-in jack. I'm going to double it over. Alright, and then you kind of keep it in place like with your finger. Flip it over, and you're going to bend the legs so that the resistor will stay put even when you shake the board around. And now you'll notice that the legs are sort of strategically bent in such a way that they're hopefully not like intersecting with any of the other jacks. So if you bend it out like this, right, hypothetically, if you bent that and you see how this leg is going over that solder pad, if you solder it, there's a chance that solder would flow onto this pad and you would accidentally fill it up, and that's always a pain in the butt to undo. So just be smart putting your resistors in and solder them in such a way that the holes don't intersect. And we're just going to go ahead and solder that in right now just to make sure that it's all good. So we have our iron. First thing we do, well, for me, turn the heat up. And then we're going to tin our iron because it's been sitting there for a while and the solder needs to be woken up, so to speak. So we're going to tin it so that some solder melts onto the tip. And it's nice and shiny, nice shiny tip. And now what you're going to do, you're going to put the iron sideways against the joint you want to solder, kind of heat it up for a second, and then you just push some solder into it, like that. Other side. So far so good. Now your kit should look like this. And hopefully this is where your resistor is. Right, in that lower left-hand corner. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take these legs. We're going to use our wire cutter. Hopefully you have one of these. We're going to cut off the legs. Alright, now for the other resistors. So we have these 3 unlabeled resistors. They're 1K resistors, but you should be able to tell them apart from the others because they come in a pack of 3. None of the other resistor values have a pack of 3. So we're going to take the little paper tabs off, and we're going to put them in the holes on the other corners. So you're going to see me refocus this a lot. There's a resistor that goes right here. There's a resistor that goes right here. There's a resistor that goes right here. You can tell them because it's 2 holes that are close together, and there's a little circle with a line connecting them. That means that the resistor goes between where those lines are. So if you have your resistor right here, gonna bend it over like we did with the other one, kind of pinch it so it makes a nice little U shape like that, and then you're gonna put it in the hole. The direction doesn't really matter, but I usually try and match it up with the thingamabob. Alright, so you can see it sticking out there. I'm going to do the same thing with the other resistors. U-shape, put it in like that. Bend the legs over. U-shape. Actually, I lied. I don't always try and match it up with the circles. It'll usually face the resistors in towards the center, with the body being closer to the outside, because that way if a jack accidentally touches the top of the, or a cable accidentally touches the top of the 0HP, it's flowing through the resistor before it gets into the other one. It doesn't matter too much, but you should see, there we go. You should see that the resistors are in the 4 sort of corners of this circuit board. Right, so pause the video here if you need to double check everything. This is how your resistors should look. Right, and if that's how it looks, we're going to go ahead and start soldering. Now, in order to do that, again, we have to be strategic about where the legs are pointing, so I'm going to go ahead and do like that, maybe, and then like this. And you don't have to worry too much if the leg is intersecting way over here, because we're soldering down here. It's not like the solder is going to jump all the way up the leg and get to this other hole. So maybe move it like that, right? Okay. Let's solder. Gonna tin our iron because it's been sitting there for a sec. And now I'm gonna do this. In fact, I'm gonna hold off on that one. Sometimes what you can do is you can solder one of the legs, and then that'll hold the resistor together enough that you can just bend the legs in another direction. And get it nice and stationary, and then move that, do some of this. There we go. Alright, so we didn't do this with the last resistor, and I apologize, but it's always good to sort of check and make sure that your joints are tight, and what I'll do in order to do that is I bend the legs up just wiggle them a little bit. And you see how there's that silver dot of solder all the way at the bottom of the leg? If you wiggle it and the dot isn't really moving, that's how you know you have a good joint. That means that the solder has flowed onto the pad on the circuit board and it's not sitting like above the circuit board, right? So if you do that with all of your legs, everything looks good. Now we can go ahead and cut them off with our wire cutters again. Alright, so far so good. So I'm going to go ahead and leave these to the side just because I want to do everything that's common to both the VCA and the low pass gate build. So if you have your resistor labeled VCA, right? Resistors labeled VCA, and your little capacitor, we're just going to put those to the side for now so that we can build everything together. What you're going to do is you're going to grab your silver baggie. Actually, let's do the jacks first. The Vactrol sticks out a little bit and it can make it annoying to solder the jacks, so we're going to start with the jacks for now. You'll notice that each jack has 3 pins, and in order to face the correct direction, the jack where you plug, the place where the plug actually goes has to be facing towards the outside of the board. Make sure everything's nice and flat before you solder it. Push it in, right? Looks good. Put this upside down. Now, you don't actually have to solder all of these. Some of the tabs are for the normalization, so these sort of sideways tabs don't need to be soldered. Just go ahead and solder the joints that I'm doing. Tin this iron a little bit. If you have an iron with variable heat, I'd suggest turning it up just a little bit. It doesn't have to go up a lot. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our iron and lean it. If you'll notice, it's sort of like an oblong, like almost like a pill shape on one direction, and it's flat in the other direction. What you want to do, I'm going to zoom in a little bit for this actually. What you want to do is put your iron flat against the flat side of the tab, let it heat up for a second or two, and then you push your solder in. And you're going to know it's a good joint because A, the hole is going to be completely filled, and B, the solder is going to be kind of like making a smooth slope into the pad instead of being stuck in a big ball on the top. So go ahead and do that with the other pads. Alright, so this looks pretty good. Again, you don't need to solder these other jacks that I did not solder. So you can if you want, but there's no reason to. So far your build should look like this. So now if you bought a kit, you'll notice this area where it says LED. There's a little like black line that's sharpied on there. Again, there was a printing issue. That line is worth taking note of. Right now we're going to open up our bag, this sort of silver doohickey. We're going to take the tape off and we're going to empty out the bag, and you can go ahead and throw the bag away after this. So there's going to be a Vactrol, a lovely purple Vactrol where all the magic happens, and then this LED. Now I'm going to zoom in on the LED because it's very important to get this right. Your LEDs have a direction that they need to be soldered in, and if you solder it in the wrong way, your module will not work. Notice the long leg and the short leg, how they're a different length. That tells you the direction that the LED needs to be soldered in. So the short leg on the LED goes to the minus sign on the circuit board, and that is to the left. So even if you can't see this minus sign right here, just know that the short leg on the LED is going to the left on the circuit board. Alright, and I'm gonna say this a couple times. Your build will not work right if you do this wrong. So let's focus. I need like 7 hands to do this. Alright, short leg on the LED, going in that little circle to the left. Short leg to the left. Alright, if you're at all unsure about this, pause the video, go back, make sure that your short leg is to the left, and that's with the text being legible. Alright, this is what it should look like right now. This is what it should look like on the bottom, with the short leg to the left. I'm going to be extremely unsympathetic if you did this in the wrong direction, because I've just said how to do it like 3 times. So while I'm always happy to help you get it working right, if the short leg is to the right, you did it wrong. The short leg goes to the left. Short leg to the left. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to bend the legs in opposite directions so that the LED stays put when we move it. And now we are going to solder it. So I'm going to turn the heat down on my iron just back to its normal level. Tin the tip. And we're going to go ahead and do our little solder kiss. Alright. Check the legs. The joints seem to be staying still. And now I'm going to chop these off. Alright. This is what your kit should look like so far. So the last thing we're going to do before we decide whether we make a Vactrol or a low pass gate or a VCA is we're going to mess with the Vactrol. And you'll notice the Vactrol also has a direction. If you do it in the wrong direction, it will not work. There's this little plastic tab sticking out of the Vactrol. That is going, whoopsies, that plastic tab is going to the bottom left corner. And you can tell which corner that is because the square that marks the outside of the Vactrol is in a little like slope or indentation, right? There's also an arrow pointing to that sloped area where the tab goes. And you'll notice also that the holes are, excuse me, it's hard to do this while looking at the camera. The holes are wider on this side than they are on that side. And the pins are narrower on this side than they are on this side. So you should be able to sort of tell if you're trying to force some pins to go in a direction that they don't want to go. It'll be more difficult for you. So as you can see, that plastic tab sticking out of the Vactrol is going to the bottom left corner. I'm going to say it again because it will not work if you do this wrong. Plastic tab, bottom left corner with the sloped section of the square. Plastic tab, bottom left corner, sloped section of the square. Push it in. What we're going to do is we're going to bend. Here's how I like to bend the legs here. I bend them out sort of like in a V shape on this side, and then I bend them in on that side. And see, V on this shape, and then in towards the center on that side. What that lets me do is I'll solder, well, alright, we're going to tin the tip really quick. We're going to solder these two that are going in towards the center. Alright, and then you bend them up, and that brings them away from the other two pads. So solder those two. Nice. We are going to test the legs. Looking good. Gonna cut off the legs. Alright, so far so good. Now, this is what your Vactrol should look like. And you'll notice there's one part left. That is the part that determines whether or not your module is a VCA or a low pass gate. Now, you might be able to guess just by, process of elimination that the resistor labeled VCA will turn your module into a VCA, and the capacitor will turn it into a low pass gate. And if you guessed that, you would be correct. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and let you decide if you want a Vactrol VCA or a low pass gate. And once you have decided, go ahead and put it into the last little position where you can put a part. So if you do the VCA, just take everything off. And similarly to before, with the other resistors, you just kind of curl it over into a little U shape, like that. And you put it in that little oblong area right here, right? So if you are building a VCA, your module will look like this with the last part. If you're building a low pass gate, which I believe I would like to do, I'm going to take your capacitor, the little orange dot, and you're going to put it in that last little section, last little oblong area. So if you're building a low pass gate, this is what it's going to look like. Alright? Either way, you can just take the part, you spread the legs out on the bottom so that it stays put, and then we're going to solder the legs. Alright, similarly with the others, we bend the legs up, and then we cut them. Alright, you're done with the soldering if you've gone up to this point. Last step is we're going to add the faceplate. So go ahead and grab the plastic piece. Zoom out a little. And go ahead and grab the plastic piece as well as the 4 little nylon standoffs. Now, the standoff is different on both sides. So you'll notice on this side, the ridge is a little smoother, and on this it's a little pointier. Alright? Smooth side, pointy side. The smooth side goes into the circuit board. Like this. We're going to take all 4, put them in. So it should look like this with the pointy sides sticking up. And now this part requires a little bit of kind of gorilla strength. I like to do it so I can read it. So I'm looking at it, I can read it. I flip it 180 because it's going to go on the bottom of the circuit board. And then I do that so I can read it as well. Alright, and then we'll put it on the table. Now I've got to stand up for this part. I'll put my thumb on top of each pair of jacks and use just kind of like all my shoulder and gorilla strength to just click it in. I might have to do it on both sides separately. Alright, so yeah, now you can see this part is attached and your module's done. Congratulations. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to comment on this video. You can also send me an email through my website, and there will be a link to the DIY thread on Muffwiggler forum if you want to comment or ask any questions there. Hope it was easy for you. I hope it was going, you know, I wasn't going too quickly or anything like that. And yeah, let me know what you're thinking. Have a wonderful day, y'all. Bye-bye.